Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 28th of August, 2023. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So just a couple of housekeeping items before we jump into the episode for today. There will be no refuel this week on Thursday and Friday, unfortunately, so sorry about that. But of course, I'll be back next Monday with an episode. I might do an episode on Saturday to catch up on Thursday, on Friday. It just depends because I know I've also got Eric Connor back for the drive-through episode, potentially on Saturday as well. I might postpone that to next week and just do a refuel on Saturday. I haven't decided yet. But yeah, there just won't be a refuel on Thursday and Friday. But there will be one on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, of course. I mean, Monday to being today, of course, is a refuel. But yeah, so there's that one. And also, I finally have the Daily Gwei Refuel live on Apple Podcasts. So for a long time, the Daily Gwei did exist as a podcast, but not on Apple Podcasts. So you could find it on other podcast apps. But on Apple's one, it just wasn't there because I hadn't enabled it to be there, but now I have. So it's there. You can go check it out. I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so, and you can leave a review as well if you're so inclined. I think the reviews on Apple Podcasts really help the reach, so that would be great. But yeah, that's available to go check out. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. All right, so on to some Ethereum news. Now, of course, I need to talk about this because a couple of people have asked me about this, and I need to kind of explain some of the nuance here. So the clientdiversity.org website recently got updated with a new data set for the execution clients here, which you can see on the right-hand side. The data set is called execution-diversity.info, which is a website that I've shown before on your screen here, and I've talked about before, but that's the new data set. Now, of course, it's a bit of a sticker shock for people because that data set shows that Geth actually has 84% dominance over the network compared to Ethernode's data source, which shows that Geth only has 44% market share. Now, I need to explain exactly how each of these data sources gets their kind of numbers. So Ethernodes is basically just an automated crawler of the network. It is not 100% accurate. I mean, no data source of this kind is ever 100% accurate, but it is definitely not 100% accurate, but it does the whole network. Every single Ethereum node that is out there or that is reachable gets kind of pinged by this, and then it gets tallied up and this data set is created. Now, there are a few issues with this because it can depend on a variety of things. Like some clients use more default peers than others, and they may be overcounted or double counted or counted more than something else. But generally, it's an approximation. It is not an exact kind of exact science here, but that's how Ethernodes gets its data. Whereas executiondiversity.info is completely different. It does not crawl the network. It is not an automated or I guess like a script-based data source. It is all manual. And what I mean by that is that you can see on the website, execution-diversity.info, that they have the biggest staking pools on Ethereum all listed here. And they also have listed what clients or what execution layer clients these entities are using. So starting from the top, you can see that Attestant is using they're not using Geth for attestations, and there's no supermajority client risk, but they haven't disclosed exactly what clients they're using. ETH Pool is using 100% Nethermind. Stakewise is 42% Geth, 29% Nethermind, and 29% Besu. Rocket Pool, 45% Geth, and so on and so forth. I'm not going to read them all out, but you can go to this website and check it out for yourself. But this is all self-reported. It is not automated. This is reported pretty much like all of it, I believe. All the data that's actually here has been collected by the ETH staker folk going to these entities and asking them what they run. Now, of course, there is a bunch of data here that we don't know for sure what they run. You can see the question mark here that there is no data to support this source, and some of them will say like 100% or maybe 100% Geth, right? So under Binance and Coinbase and Bitfinex, it says maybe 100% Geth because we just don't know what they're running. We're just assuming they're running Geth because they're big staking operators and they definitely want to be running the most robust client out there. Now, because this data is a kind of like manual process to get this data, and because they're only getting it from the biggest staking pools and not everyone on the network, the data only has 56% network coverage. But the reason why I guess like ETH staker or I believe it's Hani Abu, the person who manages these websites and has organized this initiative, considers it representative, is because these staking operators are the biggest on the network, and we know that they are staking with these clients. So there's a difference here where if you're running a full node but not staking, the risk of you running the supermajority client is a lot less than if you were staking, because obviously if there's a bug and you are running the supermajority client as a staker, there is the slashing risk. But if you're just running the full node on its own, there's no slashing risk there, right? If you're not running any validators on it, then there's no slashing risk there. So that's where the distinction comes from. And that's why people will argue, well, this data set, the execution diversity.info data set, is more representative and more important, even though it doesn't have 100% network coverage. And you know what? I don't necessarily disagree with that. But at the same time, I personally don't think these two data sets, the Ethernodes one and the execution diversity one, should be on the same, I guess, like section here, because they're so different, right? They're basically completely different data sets. They show different things about the network, and that's why you get such a large discrepancy between Geth being 84% on this data set and Geth being 44% here. Now, of course, a positive about this, even though Geth is obviously such a large part of the staking providers, is that these staking providers are not easy to reach out to, but just one of them making a kind of like change and changing from like 100% Geth to 50% Geth and 50% Nethermind makes a big impact on the network. So let's just assume, for example, that Coinbase is using 100% Geth. Well, they account for what, 10% of the network right now in terms of, I should say 10% of the stake, not 10% of the network, but 10% of the stake on the network. If they were to change to 50%, Geth and 50% Nethermind, then instantly you have a 5% impact there. So the impact is a lot bigger than individuals, and it's not just Coinbase, obviously. It's these other big ones like Kraken and Binance, and Lido's share of Geth is actually at 78%. So if they were able to get that down to like 30% Geth, that would be a huge, that would move the needle in a really big way, right? Now, in terms of execution clients themselves and what ones to run, I think it's generally agreed upon now that Nethermind and Geth are pretty much like par for number one spot. I mean, they're pretty much like as reliable as each other for the number one spot, or as robust as each other. So I always recommend to people, if they're running Geth, they can run Nethermind and they'll get the same kind of robustness and reliability, or at least close to the same, and they'll be contributing to the client diversity of the Ethereum network, which is obviously a security risk because of the slashing risks that are posed there. But if I had to rank them, I would say, yeah, Geth and Nethermind tied for number one, Besu is second, Aragon is third, and Reth is fourth. Now, keep in mind that Reth is very new as a client, and it is also still in alpha, so it is not recommended to run that with validators attached to it just yet. Aragon has been around for a while, but I mean, it's not as up to scratch as the other clients, if I'm being honest, and from what I've heard from people. Besu is getting there. Still, I would say it's still behind Geth and Nethermind, but it's getting there. So that's why I say that it would be second. So if you are a staker out there and you're not a staking provider, you can run Nethermind or Besu just fine. If you're a staking provider, maybe you just want to run Nethermind. Obviously, you're running Geth because it's been reliable for you and it's worked for you. But if you are someone who has the ear of a large staking provider out there, let them know that, hey, you know, for the sake of client diversity, for the sake of the security of the funds that you're staking, just make sure that you're not using 100% Geth. Like, you can start off slow. You can go like 90% Geth, 10% Nethermind, and then as you know, you get lindy with that and you keep running that, you can change that. You can go, okay, well, now I'm going to do like 70% Geth and 30% Nethermind, and you can slowly get that down, get that Geth percentage down, and improve the diversity of the whole network. Yeah. So that hopefully that explains to you that new data set that was put on clientdiversity.org and how it differs pretty substantially to Ethernodes, and why that kind of, I guess, like, big discrepancy exists between the two data sets there. But I'll link this all in the YouTube description for you to check out yourself. And I'm very open to conversations around this in the Daily Gwei Discord channel. Give me your thoughts on this. Do you think that there should be a more obvious explanation as to why these data sets are so different? I personally think there should. There is information if you click like read more and stuff, but I do think that it should be more obvious to people so that they don't wonder, hey, like, why is Ethernode's 44% Geth, and why is execution diversity 84% Geth? Because I just explained it, but it took me like, what, 5-6 minutes to explain it, maybe even more than that, 7 minutes to explain it. So you know, probably people are probably still confused. So I think that just having a nice explainer there on the site would go a long way. So yeah, that's my little feedback there. But keen to discuss with you guys. If you want to, you can check that. You can discuss it in the Daily Gwei Discord and check out the links in the YouTube description below. All right, so a funny little thing from OnlyFans of all companies out there. So for those of you who don't know what OnlyFans is, I mean, I'm sure all of you do, but just for the sake of brevity here, it is basically an adult entertainment platform where essentially people can subscribe to various creators on there and they get some spicy material. I'm sure you can imagine what spicy material means there. Now, this company is huge. They, I think, released their financials for the first time ever recently. And apparently users spent a combined $5.5 billion on the site. In 2022, with over 50 million new users signing up to the site. So it is not a small thing, guys. The simp economy, as people like to call it out there, is huge. People will pay for this stuff. It is what it is. I think that when you talk about the merits of it and you talk about like the insanity of it, at the end of the day, people will spend their money on what they think is going to give them value, and this is valuable to people out there. So definitely not here to moralize about that or anything. But the reason why I bring up OnlyFans is because apparently OnlyFans, the company, is buying ETH. So they actually had, when they disclosed their financials, an ETH position worth, I think they purchased $18 million worth of ETH or something like that. And it's currently worth $10 million. So maybe they bought the top or something, or the local top, and that's why they're down. But yeah, they hold ETH, which is pretty cool because I think that companies putting ETH on their balance sheet is definitely something that I want to see more of. I think that when it comes to kind of like adult entertainment and that sort of stuff, crypto has tried to build applications for it for quite a while. I mean, Ethereum has done it a few times. Probably the most infamous one is something called Spank Chain, which originally was doing like state channels and got pretty involved with layer 2 scaling for a while there. I'm not sure on the status of what that's doing right now, but it was being built because essentially a lot of these adult creators were being deplatformed by payment processors like banks and PayPal and stuff like that. So the idea was that, well, crypto, you're doing crypto payments, you can't be deplatformed because it's decentralized. So I actually think that we have the infrastructure to enable this now. And I go back to Friendtech because the funny thing about Friendtech is that some of the creators that were on OnlyFans, some of the biggest creators, actually went to Friendtech, right? And what they did was they signed up and they started going to the top of the leaderboard on Friendtech, even though the content that they produced was available for a much cheaper price on their OnlyFans than it was on their Friendtech. Now, the reason why it got bid up on Friendtech is obviously because of the speculative nature of it, where people were like buying the shares in the influencer or in the entertainer, because they were speculating that someone else was going to buy it for more and they'd be able to sell and make a profit. They weren't necessarily buying it for the content, right? So whether you believe this is a positive or negative, I don't think it really matters. What I think matters is that I think that crypto and the infrastructure, especially in the Ethereum ecosystem, could finally potentially be there to build at-scale apps like this, where essentially people can do their thing without the risk or without the fear of being deplatformed or anything like that. So I think that's incredibly positive for the ecosystem, and I think it's pretty cool that the OnlyFans, the company, is buying ETH, even though it's a small portion of their overall, I guess, like revenue and profit here. It is still great to see companies putting ETH on their balance sheet, which I do think is going to continue to be a narrative, even for like BTC. Putting ETH and BTC on the balance sheet. The BTC thing was a big thing in 2020/2021 that kicked off with like Sailor, and then Tesla bought BTC, and there were a couple of companies here and there. And there's actually a whole website dedicated to the companies that hold BTC, and you can actually look it up at Bitcoin treasuries. I'm going to bring this up for you guys just to illustrate my point here. So if you go to bitcointreasuries.net, you can see all of the companies and how much BTC they own, basically, which has always been pretty fascinating to me, because obviously MicroStrategy/Sailor is the biggest holder. He currently holds 152,000 BTC, which is just massive, guys. Like that's crazy, a crazy amount of BTC, right? And then you keep going down the list here, and you can see the other companies like Marathon Digital Holdings, which I believe is a mining company, Tesla, Coinbase, of course, and then a bunch of other companies here. And then you can scroll down and look at private companies. So those were the public companies. The private companies get pretty crazy as well. So Block One, the issuer of EOS, the EOS kind of project and ICO, For those of you who don't know, what they did with all the money they raised from EOS, with all the ETH they raised from EOS, they sold it all for BTC. And they currently own 164,000 BTC, which is more BTC than MicroStrategy holds. Crazy, right? And then MT Gox obviously holds 141,000 BTC, but that is not theirs. That obviously belongs to their customers. Tether owns a healthy chunk at 54,000. And so on and so forth. And there's actually a few countries here that own BTC as well. But obviously, like the US, the BTC that they own is seized from Silk Road and other such things, I believe. And then the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust holds 624,000 BTC, but that is owned by I guess the shareholders of the trust here. And so on and so forth. So this website's pretty cool. I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to check out. But I think this is going to be a main narrative going forward. There's more and more companies holding BTC, holding ETH. Obviously, with the ETFs going live, these companies are going to be holding a lot of BTC and ETH because they're going to be custodying it. It's not going to be theirs, but it's going to be their customers, and you're going to see that in real time because they're public companies, right? And they have to disclose this stuff, and you can see it in the ETF itself. So that's going to be pretty exciting going forward there. But yeah, cool to see that that OnlyFans, the company, is buying ETH. All right, so Terrence from Prylabs put out a bit of a teaser tweet today about something he's, I guess, like codenamed EIP 4844 Plus. So this would include 3/6 blobs plus erasure codes, all gossiped via peer-to-peer, or peer-to-peer, I should say. Client store any half of the data, client processes the block with half of the data, and new data recovery network. So this is basically looking into the future of, I guess, like a full dank sharding, because EIP 4844, as you guys know, is proto dank sharding, which is like just the first step towards dank sharding. But dank sharding is much bigger. Proper dank sharding includes things like erasure coding, it includes data availability sampling techniques, includes the whole gambit of things. And this is very topical, in saying that you can actually learn about what all of that means as well by reading this blog post from Domothy. So this post explains 4844, it explains dank sharding generally and everything in between. It is by far the best thing I've ever read on dank sharding because it is so accessible. It is not very technical. It explains the history of how we got here, how we actually got to 4844 and dank sharding, and why we abandoned execution sharding, things like that. It explains how it all works under the hood, explains the end game. There is a bit of technical kind of mathy stuff going on, but really you don't need to understand it to understand the post. So I highly recommend giving this blog post a read. It is not too long. It will teach you from a high level everything you need to know about Ethereum L1's, a big part of Ethereum L1's scaling roadmap, which is dank sharding, and you'll come away feeling a lot smarter. I actually learned a couple of things in this post that I didn't know before for some reason. So first thing I learned was that blobs are actually going to be expiring after 18 days, not a month now. So that is obviously changed over time in the spec. The spec actually changed so many times in the spec here. And I also learned that the data doesn't automatically it doesn't have to automatically expire on your full node. So you can actually set it up where you retain the data after 18 days. So it only expires as the default. Basically, I believe the default of each of the nodes will say, okay, after 18 days, discard these blobs, right? And then just continue on. But you can, I'm sure there's going to be a flag that basically says when you run your node, hey, I don't want to discard this, I want to keep it. And I think that the calculations based on the current size of blobs would be it would add an extra terabyte a year to your full node if you were to keep the data. Now, if you have the space for it, then you may as well keep it if you want to serve it to the network, right? But you don't have to. There's no. It's designed so it can be discarded. But for me, I mean, I have 100 terabytes worth of NAS storage, most of which is unused right now. What I can do is I can basically just keep it running and then every year archive it and put it on my NAS, and then it's just there. And I'm not going to be the only one doing this. There's going to be companies doing this, charging for access to the data, and I'm just doing this as like a hobbyist thing. I'm not doing this for any particular reason. I'm not planning to charge for the data or anything like that. And as I said before, you only need access to that data if you want to see the historical state of the blobs. You don't need it for security or anything like that. So yeah, I think that even if I am learning stuff this late into the 4844 cycle from blog posts like this, you're definitely going to learn a lot. So definitely go check this out. I'll link it in the YouTube description for you to read. All right, so some updates on Dencun testing from the latest All Core Devs call, which Christine Kim has summarized here. So all the EL and CL clients have been onboarded to DevNet 8. There are 2 EL clients that have not yet been spun up to run validators, but they are on the network right now. I think that's one of the major upgrades. The other major update is that Parathosh has presented a Dencun testing overview document detailing specific areas of testing for the Dencun upgrade that will be developed over the coming weeks. And also, Danny Ryan confirmed with other client teams that the only major change in the code spec between DevNet 8 and DevNet 9 would be the deployment strategy of EIP 4788, which is an EIP that is obviously outside of 4844, but still included in the Dencun DevNet 9 specs here. And for those of you who may not be aware, these DevNets aren't just for 4844, they are for every EIP going into Dencun. And I don't think there's going to be many more DevNets from here. There'll be DevNet 9, which I don't think is live yet. I think it may be going live very, very soon. Maybe we get a 10th one, but as you guys know, the Holeshki or Holsky testnet is going live on September 15th. So once that's live, I'm sure that's going to be upgraded to Dencun relatively shortly after it's stabilized there. Then we'll get Sepolia upgraded in kind of like October. I don't know if we're going to run the upgrade on Girly or if Girly is just going to be shut down before it upgrades, because obviously Holeshki is replacing Girly, but it still feels like we're well on track for November, even maybe late October, but November kind of Dencun deployment to mainnet. I don't see anything that has changed my opinion on that. So yeah, just wanted to get you guys updated on that. But you can read the full recap here from Christine Kim. I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, so you guys know about the L2 sites that I mainly use to track activity, L2beat.com and growthepie.xyz. I've showed these sites to you guys a number of times on the Refuel before, but what I posted, I guess, like over the weekend was a tweet where I said that Ethereum Layer 2 activity continues being up only, what bear market? And you can see from my screenshots here on L2 Beat, the scaling factor of L2s as compared to L1 based on TPS is over 5x. So L2s combined are doing 5 times more TPS than L1, and that has been just up only. That has not stopped going up for pretty much like the entire chart here, as you can see, right? And it's the red part of the chart. Now, if you look at growthepie.xyz and their layer 2 user base and the unique users per chain, you can see that that's also been going up only. Look at that. Look at that. It's just literally up only for the entirety of this year. And you can see it's split by layer 2. It's color coded. And I actually have to bring up the site in order to show you each of the layer 2s here. I'm actually going to bring this up right now for you just so I can point this out. So this is, if you go to growthepie.xyz, go to the layer 2 user base section and click users per chain, you can see the breakdown here. So most of the these aren't actual users, like actual people. These are addresses. Obviously, we don't know the amount of people, and we know one person can have multiple addresses, but you can see here that the majority is on ZK Sync error. Almost 1 million addresses. Arbitrum is at 400,000, Base at 215,000, OP Mainnet at 200,000, Immutable X at 25,000, Polygon ZKVM at 6,000, and multiple, meaning people using the same address using multiple chains, is at almost 500,000 here. So yeah, just up only growth for layer 2s generally, and it's great to see that, especially in a bear market, because guys, you guys know what happens in a bull market. Demand comes roaring back. We have just like an influx, like of 100x demand. What do you think the layer 2s are going to look like in that environment? I mean, layer 1's going to go nuts. Layer 2s are going to go nuts. We're going to have such an epic onboarding experience for layer 2s. There is going to be so much liquidity injected into layer 2s. It's going to be insane. So I'm personally very, very excited about that, as you guys know. But yeah, I'm going to be keeping a close eye on both of these websites to track that growth over time. Right, an update on Farcaster V3. So the rollout for V3 starts Tuesday, August 29th, which is tomorrow, of course. And you can see the TLDR of what that is here. So Farcaster V3 is coming soon, and anyone can sign up and start using the network. Existing users don't need to do anything. The first year of storage is free, and you'll keep your Farcaster username. So new users will have to pay $5 a year to use the network. So this is something that I discussed a bit in the Refuel, and maybe in the Discord channel. Maybe I've mentioned it on the Refuel before, but Farcaster is not like your typical, decentralized social media platform that doesn't charge its users, because traditionally what had happened with these platforms is that they were funding themselves via token inflation. Now, Farcaster does not have a token, and the platform that I'm talking about was Steemit, where it didn't cost anything to be on Steemit from memory. I don't think it cost anything, and all the rewards on there and all the kind of like payment for the infrastructure was paid out of tokens, right? So Farcaster is taking the different approach here, where they basically said, well, we want to take a minimally viable approach to funding this infrastructure in order to run the protocol, but we know that it incurs costs, so what's the lowest we can do? Well, $5 a year and being able to pay in crypto, I think is going to be an option, definitely, is so cheap. I mean, that is dirt cheap, guys. For a social network, I mean, I'd pay $5 a year for Twitter, and I mean, I pay like, what is it, like $8 a month I got for Twitter right now. That's US dollars. I think in Australian dollars it's like $15, something like that. I mean, I'd probably pay a lot more than that to use Twitter and Farcaster, just because I get so much value out of both of those platforms. But that is a steal at $5 per year, especially if you can pay with crypto, where essentially you can just pay with your ETH or whatever. And it's just like really easy to pay on chain, right? So yeah, I think that it's totally justified to charge for the service, especially because you need to be able to run the infrastructure. I don't know what Farcaster's approach are to ads long term. I think the goal might be to just not have ads at all. But it depends. Infrastructure costs can quickly spiral, and it just depends on how many users they have. Say they've got like 1 million users paying $5 a year. That's $5 million a year. Okay, is that enough to run the network? Remains to be seen. It depends on what the users are, how active they are, what the infrastructure costs are, all that stuff there. But yeah, Farcaster V3 rollout starts on August 29th, which is tomorrow. And also, I believe that Farcaster is going to be open to the public over the next couple of months, so you will no longer need an invite to get on Farcaster. All right, so Chainlink God has shared that Chainlink staking version 0.2 is on track to launch in Q4 of this year. Now, the TLDR is that there is a pool expansion to 45 million Link tokens in the staking pool, so obviously raising that TVL cap there. There is a priority migration for version 0.1 stakers. The unbonding mechanism for unstaking is going to be in place, a dynamic variable reward rate, and modular architecture for future upgrades. Now, of course, I'll link Chainlink God's thread in the YouTube description below, because he does a really, really great job of explaining exactly what's happening in this upgrade, and very, very detailed as well. So I'll link it there for you guys. But there's also a bunch of graphics that he shared too that explain this. So yeah, just wanted to highlight that for you guys, for you to check out, because I know a bunch of you are big fans of Chainlink, myself included, and it's great to see them continuing to execute on their staking roadmap here. All right, so last thing to talk about is this little poll that I put out over the weekend, where I said, what do you think 2024 is going to be for crypto? And the options were bullish, bearish, neutral, or don't care / results. Now, this poll is definitely not going to be representative. It's definitely going to be completely biased and skewed and whatever, but I figured it was a fun little exercise to do. So out of all of the results, bullish came in, well ahead of the pack. So 57% of people, and there were 2,500 votes on this poll. So 57% of people said that they are bullish for next year, 10% said bearish, 20% said neutral, and 12.5% said that they don't care or selected the results option here. So I'll discard the don't care results option and just focus on the top three. So the reason why I say this is not representative is because obviously a lot of people in crypto right now, of course, like in the depths of the bear market, are going to be bullish biased because they want a bull market. I mean, who doesn't want a bull market, right? Maybe the results here would have been different at the top of the market in November 2021, where people would say, well, they're feeling bearish because the market is already so overheated. But I don't know, because I didn't run this poll back then. But of course, people are bullish biased in crypto right now because they're longer term investors, and they look at things like the 4-year cycle and they see things playing out similarly, and they're like, yeah, okay, I'm bullish. So yeah, that one, of course, because of those reasons, I think. But then you have like the bearish and neutral, which I think is probably the neutral take is a lot more understanding than the bearish take. Like, I don't really understand the bearish take too much, because in my mind, there's not really that much to be bearish about going into next year. If you discard the macro environment, which I do, to be honest. And honestly, I think the macro environment is nowhere near as bad as some people think it is. But let's ignore that for now. The in crypto context is not bearish. We there's no tourists around, right? The prices of most assets, or pretty much all assets, have completely reset themselves. ETH and BTC went down 80, 90% already. Everything else went down 90 plus percent, and he's still down 90 plus percent. We washed out pretty much all of the froth. We washed out all of the bad players, or most of the bad players. Valuations of private markets have come down substantially, and the market has just been trending in this crab range for such a long time now. So I don't understand the bearish outlook, to be honest. And I'm not just saying that because I'm bullish biased. I just don't understand why you would be bearish going into next year, unless maybe you were looking at the macro environment and thinking, okay, well, we're going to have a major recession, inflation's going to tick up again, everything's going to zero, blah, 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 Great Depression 2.0, whatever you want to call it, right? Then, okay, I get it. But it's good that only 10% of people said they were bearish, because if it was the majority, I'd be like, yeah, this is crazy. Like, I don't think that's right. I do think, again, being bullish biased myself, I do think that the bullish people are more likely to be right than the bearish or neutral people. But the neutral people as well could just be neutral in that maybe they think next year is going to be climbing up to like 3K ETH or 4K ETH and not like the full bull market, which is totally fine as well. But I would still consider that to be bullish. So anyway, I'd love to get your thoughts on what you guys are, either in the YouTube comments or on the Discord channel. What are you for 2024? Bullish, bearish, neutral, or, just, and give your reasoning as well. I think that's one thing that not many people gave. There are a few comments explaining the reasoning here, but the majority didn't give any reasoning. So I'm kind of making assumptions here. But yeah, if you want to comment and leave your kind of I guess like bull or bear case, I'd love to see it. You guys know that I'm very, very bullish. Obviously, not just for next year, but just generally. I'm a perma bull. I have a long-term time horizon. It's hard not to be a perma bull, considering things like the layer 2 growth I showed you guys before, just the general growth of the ecosystem and everything in between. So yeah, let me know how you're feeling, but I think for today that's going to be it. So thank everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks everyone.